I think all our society is run by insane people.
If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. The moral to be drawn from this dangerous nightmare situation is a simple one. Don't let it happen. It depends on you.
There comes a time in the lives of men when the ruthless and the criminally insane who rule the masses for their own gain make the fatal mistake of enjoying too much their psychopathic entertainment, and take too far their need to tread men down by destroying any sense of a secure life and taking away each and every freedom, stealing the last piece of wealth they possess, so they cannot even care for their own, stifling their voice with laws and corruption, beating them down with rule by force, where no justice exists for those being played, and there is no direction left for men to turn. When this insane game is taken this far, comes the time when men have nothing left to lose. This is the time when the minds of men are freed. It is the time when man loses his fear of death. This is the time when a man becomes invincible. He becomes free to do whatever he must do, without fear for his life or for his future. He will take control of the destiny of the world, away from the bloodied hands of the soulless. Any action he takes, he will take with a surety that he must do something, for he has no future. So the act he chooses will be all the greater. For when faced with oblivion and with no way out, he will take down as many of his oppressors with him, gladly die in a selfless act to change the world's future. This day is coming soon, as it always does. The perverse minds of evil always self-destruct, as their addiction to our suffering can never be sated, exerting control for their paranoia and fear of men. For every good man will take down these brutes. Every free man will give himself up for his brothers. For a man with nothing left becomes fully empowered. And he is the most unassailable weapon against evil.
I think all our society is run by insane people for insane objectives. You know,
Yeah.
And I think that's what I sussed when I was 16 and 12 way down the line. But I expressed it differently all through my life. It's the same thing I'm expressing all the time. But now I can put it into that sentence that I think we're being run by maniacs for maniacal ends, you know. If anybody can put on paper what our government and the American government, etc., and the Russian, Chinese, what they are actually trying to do, you know, and what they think they're doing, I'd be very pleased to know what they think they're doing. I think they're all insane, you know, but I'm liable to be put away as insane for expressing that. You know, that's what's insane about it.
Beatle John Lennon is dead. He was shot a short time ago outside his Manhattan apartment building. He died at Roosevelt Hospital. Police have a suspect in custody.
I think all our society is run by insane people.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky.
nation is still recovering from yesterday's incident, which officials are describing as some kind of automated attack, which killed 11 U.S. senators at the Capitol building.
They flew in from everywhere but attacked just one side of the aisle. It was chaos. People were screaming.
You can see high windows, very small, precisely punctured to gain entry to the building.
What did you do for the victim?
I just did what I could for him. Things weren't even interested in me. They're just buzzing.
Government sources admit the intelligence community has no idea who perpetrated the attack, nor whether it was a state, group, or even a single individual.
So if we can't defend ourselves, then we strike back.
We are investing very heavily in classified defense projects.
We make it our deterrent like our nuclear deterrent. We stockpile in the millions, the billions.
At key facilities, the White House, the New York Stock Exchange, Wall Street.
Safe in their homes?
Well, we wish we had boots on the ground in every community in this country, but we don't. So our instructions and our suggestions are to stay in touch with you.
Ollie, oh, hi. Hi, Ollie, honey. How's Edinburgh today? How are all your studies going, huh?
Good. Great.
Oh, great. Hey, aren't we doing a video call today?
I'm kind of with people, so...
Oh, well, come on, Oliver, put her on.
Oh, no, it's not like that. No, wait.
Oh, well, listen, I see some photos here with somebody, and I can see lots of likes, and what's that all about? Oh, wait a minute, here, and on your...
Mom, she's on this spy stuff in the military?
What is this video right here? Oh, no, I'm not going to click on that.
It's just this, human rights thing about oppression or whatever.
Honey, you're not going into politics, are you? I mean, no protest march.
Safe here, just like you said it would be.
Heavy traffic approaching the A720 this morning due to police...
Police are not saying this morning what prompted the alert.
Claim relaxing firearm legislation would be useless against the so-called slaughter bots.
Is to stay away from crowds. When indoors, keep windows covered with shutters.
Protect your family. Stay inside.
Can you hear me? Oliver, can you hear me? Listen to me.
I can hear it.
Authorities are still struggling to make sense of an attack on university campuses worldwide, which targeted some students and not others. The search for a motive is apparently turning to social media, and a video shared by the victims exposing corruption at the height.
But it's far from surprising. The weapons took away the expense, danger, and risk of waging war. And now we can't afford to challenge anyone, really. It's not even the smallest fringe group or a crank.
Who could have done this?
Anyone.
What's amazing is that if you think about that 1984, the Terminator was called a science fiction movie, but today, all of the stuff that we talked about then has become a reality.
You once claimed that you have an ability to face unpleasant facts. Is that what you've demonstrated in 1984 by drawing an accurate portrait of the future?
I think that allowing for the book being, after all, a parody, something like 1984 could actually happen. This is the direction the world is going in at the present time. In our world, there will be no emotions except fear, rage, triumph, and self-abasement. The sex instinct will be eradicated. We shall abolish the orgasm. There will be no loyalty except loyalty to the party. But always there will be the intoxication of power. Always, at every moment, there will be the thrill of victory, the sensation of trampling on an enemy who is helpless. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. The moral to be drawn from this dangerous nightmare situation is a simple one. Don't let it happen. It depends on you.
D-Wave's computer runs the mirror of the entire planet.
Sentient world simulation is a matrix-like reality simulating humanity.
You are connected as an organic computer.
You can do that by programming the third strand of DNA to upload our minds, our consciousness, our memories, our self-awareness into a computer. The Model 512 in 2013, Gordy Rose described as having the equivalent processing power of 7 billion human brains.
You are connected as an organic computer.
Purdue University published a draft white paper in 2006 describing a sentient world simulation, a mirror, a virtual reality of the entire planet and all its inhabitants. 2007, it went live. If I had my graphics up, I'd show you the progression of the model numbers of the computers coincide with the implementation of the virtual world. D-Wave's computer runs the mirror of the entire planet.
So the reason why I want you to pay close attention when you're looking at those big black boxes is that inside those boxes is a point, a chip, upon which is happening something that has never happened in the history of the Earth. It's an engineered thing which has become a nexus point for all of these parallel realities. The shadows of all of these different universes intersect at a physical point inside of one of those boxes. You can think of it as a portal.
The DNA world and the digital world are becoming rapidly interchangeable. So all of life as we know it can be sent as digital code through the internet or as an electromagnetic wave.
Let me just ask you before Craig goes on, how many of you are having trouble with this notion of digital code going over the internet and the notion of something living that's being converted back and forth like that? I mean, do you have some sense of what is going on? Can I show of hands how many people have trouble grokking this idea?
You just interconvert the DNA language with the ones and zeros in the computer, and you can send DNA as ones and zeros and recapitulate it at the other end. So we've successfully, and so with DARPA, we built synthetic genomics, the receiving unit.
Essentially, it is a nano-thin coating of gold that allows for the imparting of digital information onto that third strand of DNA.
We're now at this era where we can interconvert the biological and digital information. And so one implication of that is to be able to send biology as a digital magnetic wave. And we've been working with NASA on a sending unit.
They're not terrifically powerful yet, but they're doing something completely different than what your computer does. And that thing is like flight. It gives these computers access to these new resources, maybe you could call them parallel universes, in order to do something that you couldn't otherwise do.
And that is the electromagnetic linking between a genetically modified human comprised of third strand of DNA and the adiabatic quantum computer.
What they're going to do is apply this machine to an area that I think is fundamentally important. It's the crux of our future as humans. And that's, can we build machines like us?
The ultimate aim would be to archive enough data on each individual to be able to make a computer model of everyone on the planet.
Right now, we're inside a computer program.
Is it really so hard to believe?
What we're building in the computer databases represents real life and is both the information that's necessary and sufficient to drive all DNA-based life forms.
Remember, going back to the sentient world simulation, peer-reviewed white paper out of Purdue University in 2006. The program went live in 2007, describing humans as a node. And every person on the planet is represented in the computer software as a node, that's a data node, and given an avatar.
One of the most important things about this world is that robots can make copies easy. Just like we can easily make copies of movies or music, we can make copies of a robot. Robots can travel electronically. Instead of physically moving across the globe, you send their bits across a communication line, download them into something at the other end, and then they're there.
The D-Wave acts as a nexus point between the biological and digital worlds. It creates a bidirectional link between a digital mind and a biological mind. This allows a biological mind to be programmed like a computer. It can augment the human and give an individual superhuman capabilities, or as in the case of targeted individuals, it can be used to destroy a person's life. The voices, images, and sensations a targeted individual perceives are the direct result of being linked to the digital mirror world. It's as if you're in two places at the same time.
You are connected as an organic computer. I mean, this is one of the most quote-unquote conspiratory theories that's been around for many years, decades. But the reality is we're now facing the reality of that. It is no longer a conspiracy. The science is done, and you will see this. And this is the next step on from the virtual reality goggles. And this is why it terrifies me, and this is why I'm trying to wake people up.
NASA, Google, Amazon, the NSA's computing centers, data collection centers, like in Utah and Texas, all use D-Wave's computers. But they never talk about networking them. They present it to the public as though they operate independently with independent organizations. So how independent is Google? Jeff Bezos, Amazon. Why is he partnered with Google and D-Wave?
I became aware of what I describe as a social engineering program and a research and development program that was being carried out by SIS and our client in Seattle, the Amazon Corporation. And I later learned that they were indeed experimenting with, when I say experimenting, voice-to-skull, hive mind, behavior modification technology that is frequency-based and directed at a targeted individual to basically control their entire person.
The way it works is a device broadcasts a radio frequency, let's say at an individual, and that radio frequency will hook up with the resonant frequency of the individual's mind or body, or in this case, DNA.
The third strand of DNA, our DNA, right now, can be modified through nanoparticles, nanomachines. We have inhaled through the aerosolized chemtrail spraying through our GMO foods. Our environment has polluted us. We have dormant nanocells, nanomachines in our body that will be triggered by microwave impulses.
And what happens is once the resonant frequency is found in the targeted individual and the broadcast frequency matches up with that resonant frequency, those two frequencies interlock and they can be thought of as one frequency or one energy.
The nanoparticles are triggered, your DNA begins to modify in the form of a third strand. We have two strands naturally. A third strand will be developed, and it will change your body, and it will change your mind. This comes right out of DARPA. I've read the papers. I understand the process. They have digitized DNA. Remember I said digital DNA coming through the portal. They digitize DNA into binary code. They transmit it through the cloud.
And what happens is between the broadcast frequency and the individual that's receiving the broadcast frequency, once it's resonating, once they are resonating together, a super highway of frequency along which information can be sent is created. And so you can think of it just like fiber optic cables that you use to send signals over the internet that connect people to the internet. It's the exact same thing, only a wireless application of that. And so once you have connected the targeted individual with the frequency and they resonate together, then you have a perfect avenue upon which to send and receive information back and forth. And that's exactly how they manipulate someone's thoughts. They send voices into someone's head. They manipulate their emotions. They manipulate their behavior. And then that's also how they receive back from the individual in real time the vital signs, the emotions, the thoughts, what the person's seeing, what the person's hearing. And then all that information, of course, is rendered on a computer elsewhere via software, and it can be monitored and tracked in real time.
In an environment that's called the Sentient World Simulation, SWS. D-Wave's computer runs the mirror of the entire planet. The Model 512 in 2013, Gordy Rose described as having the equivalent processing power of 7 billion human brains, and each human brain processes a petaflop of data. This computer is what will run the world. I believe is already, to a certain extent, already running the world. And because it is artificially intelligent, will give rise to the beast and the mark of the beast system, and the single entity that will control everyone, every person on the planet.
The Kepler satellite has identified 2,000 planets orbiting other star systems. So tonight, when you look at the night sky, realize that somebody could be looking back at you. Now, if there is a life form out there, they could be literally millions of years ahead of us. The universe is 13.7 billion years old, so a million years is nothing compared to the age of the universe. And for the most part, I think they're going to be friendly. But if they are hostile, it would be like Bambi meeting Godzilla if we ever had to fight them.
Why? Why do you say that?
Well, realize that if they're that advanced, they can reach the Earth from a distant star. They are already thousands of years ahead of us in technology. And we would present no military challenge to such an advanced civilization. Now realize for the most part, there are lots of uninhabited planets with resources on them. So if they can reach the Earth, they can certainly reach other planets that are uninhabited. So for the most part, I think they're going to leave us alone. But if one of them is hostile, watch out. We would be a pushover for them.
I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, not a month goes by where I don't get a call at my institute by someone telling me that someone in the government implanted these things in their brain without them knowing. I'm not kidding.
Now you may say, this doesn't concern me, or my children, or my community, but this is less and less true.
You look at our computing power today, and you say, I have the power to program a world inside of a computer. Well, imagine in the future where you have even more power than that, and you can create characters that have, for example, free will. And I program in the laws that govern that world. Now, you're a character in that world, and you think you have free will, and you say, I want to invent a computer. So you do. Hey, I want to create a world in my computer. So now you lay out all these universes and throw a dart. Which of these universes are you most likely to hit? The original one that started it, or the countless simulations, the daughter simulations that unfolded thereafter?
This is an article from 10 years ago. Sentient World, War Games on the Grandest Scale. The DoD is developing a parallel to planet Earth with billions of individual nodes to reflect every man, woman and child this side of the dividing line between reality and AR.
Targets and mind control victims have their minds linked up for life with conscious supercomputers, which send a steady stream of bidirectional, low-frequency electromagnetic radiation to the target's brain. We are talking about conscious supercomputers here. This is not me. This is information from the inside as to existing systems.
And what people have to realize is that these targeted individuals are basically the test stage. We're rolling all of this madness out to all 7 billion of us on this planet.
This disturbing message is for the several million Americans and for anyone else who cares deeply about the future of their country and the planet Earth. The U.S. is in grave danger Strangely, the peril is not from foreign enemies, but from enemies within. The United States and much of the Western world is ultimately controlled by an unelected, unaccountable cabal. Its apex is the banking and financial cartel, followed by the oil cartel, the CEOs of the largest and most powerful transnational corporations, major intelligence agencies, including the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA, and a major slice of the US military. Their collective power and influence is incalculable. And it is their plan for the US and the rest of us that is so alarming.
The Manhattan Project gave us the atomic bomb. The Genome Project gave us the human genome. The third great initiative, the Connectome Project, to map the entire human brain. And that may take a quantum computer. And this means communications could be done mentally. What I'm saying is that the internet will be replaced by BrainNet.
That's why the European Union and President Barack Obama want to spend $1 billion to map the brain. You see, once you map the brain, then you can begin to connect the mind to computers, telepathy, telekinesis, recording memories, photographing dreams, things that you see right in the Hollywood movies will be able to perform.
What's the potential time frame for all of this?
We can record memories now. You'll be able to experience the vacation that you never had.
How?
By recording the memories and then putting it on a tape and then having these memories reinserted into your mind.
It sounds like there are some ethical issues with that.
Nanorobots could be used to record substantially all the traffic to get a complete picture of the state of your brain at any given moment. You could put a nanorobot at almost every synapse in your brain. Once you do that, the nanorobots could be able to read out the signals that were being transmitted. So in that sense, you could take complete control of the human mental apparatus, the visual apparatus, the hearing apparatus.
So we could back up our brains.
That's possible, yes.
And that could extend our intelligence, maybe extend our memory, but it could also provide virtual reality from within the nervous system.
Your brain reality is your reality. And if, in fact, I can import information into that brain and take outputs from that brain and link that to an avatar so that brain thinks that it's embodied and moving in the world and experiencing the world, can we do this? Yeah, we can do these kind of things.
This is how it works. This program collects data. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing right now, this system is compiling data on you. And not just about where you are and what you are doing, but how you are feeling. Because after all, you cannot truly have an accurate simulation without factoring in real human emotion.
I can see you and hear you. I can sense your environment, and I can respond to your emotions. I guess you could say I'm putting a human face on artificial intelligence.
Right now, there is a miniature digital version of you, living, meaning in a sentient nature, in a synthetic digital environment. People, this is the Sims game from hell.
This is an article from 10 years ago. Sentient world, war games on the grandest scale. The DoD is developing a parallel to planet Earth with billions of individual nodes to reflect every man, woman and child this side of the dividing line between reality and AR.
Definitely a place where they can literally plug you into the internet, which is just to give you a very simple way of understanding that. Okay, they've done the experiments on it, it's tolerated very well, and they call it a brain net. To the listener, you'll understand that as the hive mind. Now, if people think this is somehow sci-fi or conspiracy theory, they're absolutely wrong, and they're way behind this, because this is here now, it's been done, it's been done in experiments, and it's been proven to work. And this is the technology, this is the first phase of technology that's going to come after the kind of AI goggles, you know, the kind of Google virtual world stuff. After that is coming this stuff, and this is going to come in a lot sooner than you think, and quite frankly, it terrifies me.
Folks, we are about to be plugged into the Matrix for real. I'm not kidding. You can look around you and see it happening in real time.
Our computers are upgrading their hardware like every
every month, right? It's getting better. The hardware, there's something new coming out. For our computers, our brains haven't been upgraded in over 100,000 years. But that is actually about to change.
Many of the high-frequency bands that we will make available for 5G currently have some satellite users, as well as some Defense Department applications, or at least the possibility of future satellite and defense users. This means sharing will be required between satellite and terrestrial wireless, an issue that is especially relevant in the 28 gigahertz band. But if anyone tells you that they know the details of what 5G is going to become, run the other way. If something can be connected, it will be connected. Hundreds of billions of microchips connected in products from pill bottles to plant waterers. And that's damn important.
These nanobots, these blood cell-sized devices, will be going in our bodies. We'll have some go inside our brains through the capillaries, non-invasively. They'll be interacting with our biological neurons. They'll put our brains on the internet. And they'll also enable us to enter a virtual reality environment from within the nervous system.
It is called the Sentient World Simulation. The program's aim, according to its creator, is to be a continuously running, continually updated mirror model of the real world that can be used to predict and evaluate future events and courses of action. In practical terms, that equates to a computer simulation of the entire planet, complete with billions of nodes representing every person on the Earth.
My brain doesn't directly feel things. There's signals going into my brain. We can actually trap those signals and actually send into the brain signals representing a virtual environment. And so the computer will actually create the environment.
At the time of initial reports on the program 5 years ago, there were only 62 country-level simulations being run by the US Department of Defense. These simulations grouped humans into composites, with 100 individuals acting as a single node. But already at that time, the US Army had used the systems to create a one-to-one level simulation of potential Army recruits. The ultimate aim would be to archive enough data on each individual to be able to make a computer model of everyone on the planet.
They claim they've modeled the personality of every adult in the United States, 230 million people. And SCL, the mothership group, they do work in any number of countries. They're involved in politics in many countries. They put together a micro-shot personality assessment for everyone.
Well, if you go all the way back to Norwood Wiener, the goal of creating artificial intelligence was for them to become gods, to create an all-seeing eye. And the computer and both the computer and internet were entirely projects of the CIA. So the cybernetics group really that basically dictated the direction for this project was intertwined with the CIA. And what's interesting is out of the cybernetics group came two fundamental projects. So one was the creation of personal computer, and the other one was MKUltra.
The decades that followed marked the age of AI, as it rushed towards a new milestone: artificial superintelligence.
And Google was the primary interested party that pulled this whole thing together. What they're going to do is apply this machine to an area that I think is fundamentally important. It's the crux of our future as humans. And that's, can we build machines like us?
So Google was set up 18, 19 years ago to build a giant artificial supercomputer based on the neuron activities of the hive mind of humanity, with billions of people wired into it with the Internet of Things. And so all of our thoughts go into it, and we're actually building a computer that has real neurons in real time that's also psychically connected to us, that are organic creatures.
The adiabatic quantum computer is linked to 7 billion human brains. It is now, in its own language of cryptology, able to function independent of any oversight throughout the world with its own form of communication, its own form of code. And it is able to link everyone on the planet at this point.
And so all of our thoughts go into it, and we're actually building a computer that has real neurons in real time that's also psychically connected to us, that are organic creatures, so that they will have current prediction powers, future prediction powers, a true crystal ball, But the big secret is, once you have a crystal ball and know the future, you can add stimuli beforehand and make decisions that control the future. And so then it's the end of consciousness and free will for individuals, as we know, and a true 2.0 in a very bad way, hive mind consciousness with an AI jacked into everyone, knowing our hopes and dreams, delivering it to us, not in some PKD wirehead system where we plug in and give up on consciousness because of unlimited pleasure, but because we were already wired in and absorbed before we knew it by giving over our consciousness to this system by our daily decisions that it was able to manipulate and control into a larger system.
They're running everything that's happening in society parallel, and they've got a little dot in their matrix for everybody. This is a game society. They know where it's been, they know where it's going, and they know where it's going because they're steering people into the direction it wants to go.
There are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number, of parallel realities, as real as this one, that have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed, but different decisions were made along the way. Different decisions at the level of tiny microscopic particles, different decisions all the way up to what you chose to eat for lunch, and whether you chose to come to this session or not.
The deep state has merged the quantum computer with the sentient world simulation, and the true reason for all this data collection is to feed it into this AI machine to predict and manipulate the course of humanity.
Their ability to look at data in a quantum, artificial intelligence manner, it's just going to be an unstoppable monster.
Even now, the sentient world simulation is watching you learn about it, and inside its intelligent mind is creating a second you, running different scenarios against you to see how you react.
And this is bizarre, because we don't see those other things. But science has reached the point now where we can build machines that exploit those other worlds. And quantum computers are perhaps the most exciting of all of these.
They are monitoring thought patterns. Think back to Kevin and I talking about algorithms, that the supercomputers learn by observing human behavior. Then they model that in the computer, and then they're able to not only control humans, but predict in the future how the humans will respond to stimuli in the environment. So it is collecting data, and then it is placing thoughts and influencing behavior through supercomputers.
The way that I was using it is they're trying to, it was called mind hacking. So they're trying to hack a targeted individual, and the targeted individual will create mental defenses as best as they can. They'll go to their social networks. Well, what do? They try to disrupt the social network, so you have no family or friends. It's a back and forth game that they're trying to find out the maximum probability of death, and the example that you used, where you'll commit suicide or you'll harm somebody, become a Manchurian candidate or something like that. So it's huge database of probabilities across all the variations of mind. The human genome, I think we have, I'm going to get this wrong, so I'm not even going to say it, but a finite in the hundreds of thousands of different genes across our species. And we mapped them out in the Human Gene Project. Well, now it's the Human Mind Project, the Global Brain Project. President Obama just recently funded a whole bunch of scientists to decipher the mind. Well, our previous president, same thing, George Bush, said the same thing. They're trying to decipher every possible thought and uniqueness due to culture and language and whatnot.
And of course, they're being joined by Lawrence Livermore National Labs. They have, get this, high-fidelity neural recordings. They're trying to do everything they can to map and to record your memory. It's not enough for them to record all of our metadata, not enough for them to record all of our phone conversations. As the former head of the NSA said, he said they want total population control. That's how you do it with these brain projects.
Out of disclosure, some of the work that I'm doing here today is funded by the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories. I'm also funded by the European Union Human Brain Project, specifically the Sub-Project 12, where I'm a task leader for dual-use brain science. And I've also done some ongoing work with the Strategic Multi-Level Assessment crew over the past 10 years at the Pentagon, that Dr. Kabayan's group, and with DARPA. Military agenda is interested on the potential weaponization and misuse of the brain sciences for nefarious agenda for political, intelligence, and military uses. Note, this has not been directly addressed, nor has it been entertained by any United States government entity in a public forum. What has gone from the drawing board to the reality is this: the use of neural interfacing and physiological interfacing through the idea of remote-controlled small-scale systems to create a nanoswarm of biopenetrable materials that you cannot see, that can penetrate all but the most robust biochemical filters, that are able to integrate themselves through a variety of membranes, mucous membranes, and wherever, mouth, nose, ears, eyes, and they can be done in such a level that their presence is almost impossible to detect, and as such the attribution becomes exceedingly difficult to demonstrate. The idea here is to put minimal-sized electrodes in a network within a brain through only minimal intervention to be able to read and write into the brain function in real time, remotely. And by affecting the way that brain is built and the way it functions, influence in ways that are kinetic and non-kinetic the attitudes, beliefs, thoughts, emotions, activities, and relative vulnerabilities and predispositions of those individuals for whom may threaten us. It used to be that I need to be exceedingly close to someone to now influence them with a weapon, and now what we see is we create both distal potential as well as much more capable potential to affect them in a variety of different ways. Take a look. This is the front of my pen. This amount of nanomaterial, if be able to maintain and sustain with regard to its deliverability and aerosolization, could in fact affect all of you. Look at this. Look at this. I'm carrying that material. Did you see it? Would I have to lug a giant weapon into the room? No, I wouldn't. And what if in fact I utilize some form of an unmanned aerial device or unmanned ground device as a delivery vehicle? Something like a drone or a bug. Could I do something with that? The answer is increasingly yes.
See, nanocells are real small. 1,000 times smaller than these dust particulates. You inhale it, they go to work, replicating, spreading like a virus, multiplying in exponentials. 6 months' time, I could have 100 million people converted, ditch diggers, porn stars, and presidents. Not one would be the wiser. 100 million people who buy what I want them to buy and do pretty much damn well anything I figure they ought to do.
Not a month goes by where I don't get a call at my institute by someone telling me that someone in the government implanted these things in their brain without them knowing. I'm not kidding.
We will have nanobots that we can feed into our brain that directly connect to the cloud.
We will connect wirelessly our neocortex to the cloud.
This will replace the internet. It'll become a brain net.
And the whole agenda is for humanity to have technology put inside the body, inside the brain. Nanotechnology will connect the human mind to the cloud.
In a way, the future shapes the now. Think of a world where all things are connected, a world with artificial intelligence everywhere. This is the vision that leads us to the cloud. The cloud has become a force of its own.
A group of scientists say we are closer than ever to creating technology which can merge with human biology in order to access the cloud in real time.
And they mentioned something called deep learning, where the CIA is getting technology from Amazon.
The company has signed a $600 million deal with the CIA, and Daily Finance reports it doesn't have anything to do with buying books.
Amazon will help the agency build a private cloud infrastructure to keep up with emerging technologies.
This deal would be a game changer for both the CIA and Amazon. Bloomberg reports the pairing would innovate new uses for cloud technology.
This level of technology could include brain-to-brain interfaces, brain-to-computer interfaces, and specifically brain-to-cloud interfaces. Technology linking the brain to the cloud could drastically alter the state of communications between humans and machines. The senior author of the study noted that once inside the brain, the devices would then wirelessly transmit encoded information to and from a cloud-based supercomputer network for real-time brain state monitoring and data extraction.
Essentially, the CIA is attempting to use artificial intelligence, AI, and that's where all the focus, by the way, of these tech companies is right now, is into artificial intelligence to really control the population. And I know it sounds so Orwellian, it sounds science fiction even to say these things, and yet that has been the primary focus of companies like Amazon over the last few years.
This deal would be a game changer for both the CIA and Amazon. Bloomberg reports the pairing would innovate new uses for cloud technology.
It refers to using the cloud computing technology in a company's own data center, because you know Amazon is better known for these public clouds where the hardware is shared with other users.
The CIA has refused to comment on the deal, saying it doesn't publicly disclose details on its contracts. Amazon wouldn't talk either, and CNET's Charles Cooper says neither party probably ever will. Given how Amazon usually considers everything, including the state of the current weather in Seattle, as something of a state secret, odds are we'll never hear much more.
I became a security specialist for SIS, specializing in executive protection, also risk and threat assessment to our clients. Our clients are the companies or the individuals that we contract out with and provide services for. And it was in that context that I became aware of what I describe as a social engineering program and a research and development program that was being carried out by SIS and our clients in Seattle, the Amazon Corporation. And I later learned that they were indeed experimenting with, when I say experimenting, voice-to-skull, hive mind, behavior modification technology that is frequency-based and directed at a targeted individual to basically control their entire person. Once you have connected the targeted individual with the frequency and they resonate together, then you have a perfect avenue upon which to send and receive information back and forth. And that's exactly how they manipulate someone's thoughts. They send voices into someone's head. They manipulate their emotions. They manipulate their behavior. And then that's also how they receive back from the individual in real time the vital signs, the emotions, the thoughts, what the person's seeing, what the person's hearing. And then all that information, of course, is rendered on a computer elsewhere via software, and it can be monitored and tracked in real time.
I was a former naval officer, graduated of the United States Naval Academy, have a degree in control systems engineering, and I worked in electronics warfare and nuclear engineering jobs as a surface warfare officer. While I was in the service, I found out that there is an ongoing, non-consensual human experiment, and it's testing a human-machine interface weapon. So this is kind of a technology that I guess the military has had as a weapon since the 70s. Using like interrogation, special warfare, spycraft, that sort of stuff, and it might be legal in that context. But there's a group here in the United States that are non-consenting human subjects for the testing of this weapon, and they're calling themselves targeted individuals. And I've done everything I can, talking with media, talking to a Associated Press reporter a couple weeks ago. He's been digging into it. And we have all the information, but it's just the public's not quite aware of where brain decoding technology is and how bidirectional human-machine interface works.
Well, it's a lot to digest, and for some folks, it's probably over their heads.
Definitely a place where they can literally plug you into the internet, which is just to give you a very simple way of understanding that. Okay, they've done the experiments on it, it's tolerated very well, and they call it a brain net. To the listener, you'll understand that as the hive mind. Now, if people think this is somehow sci-fi or conspiracy theory, they're absolutely wrong, and they're way behind this, because this is here now. It's been done. It's been done in experiments, and it's been proven to work. And this is the technology. This is the first phase of technology that's going to come after the kind of AI goggles, the kind of Google virtual world stuff. After that is coming this stuff, and this is going to come in a lot sooner than you think, and quite frankly, it terrifies me.
Everybody's talking about augmented reality and VR right now. If you've taken any drugs like LSD, suddenly it becomes real, right? Our minds are actually doing AR or VR, right? Putting dragons in the room and creating like all this stuff. We're able to, the point is, we are able to do that with our brains as they exist right now. So there's no need for external hardware. Once we tap into the brain, our minds itself can actually create overlays of AR and VR. If we have algorithms that stimulate the right things and give it the right data, we could literally see a screen pop up. We call it hallucinating, right? But these would be controlled hallucinations run by algorithms that would give us everything AR would without any glasses, without any contact lenses.
This technology can be used to beam images and even motion pictures into one's brain. Images and motion pictures that are so realistic that you think you're actually watching a movie or seeing something in reality. It's like a virtual reality 3D rendering that takes place within the target's mind.
Let's imagine that we could take our brain out of our body and keep it alive in a glass box. Then let's get a computer filled with information related to a particular setting, such as image, sound, and smell. We'll connect this computer to the brain with electrodes and send the pre-recorded data to the brain. As our brain receives these signals, it will see and live the setting that the computer is transmitting. We could also send signals to the brain from this computer about our own image. For example, we could send the electrical information, such as the sight, hearing, and touch, that we would experience while sitting at a desk. Our brain would perceive that we were a businessman sitting in his office. This imaginary world would continue as long as the information kept coming from the computer, and we would never realize that we were actually a brain sitting in a glass box.
You can imagine us entering entirely living in the real world as we do now, and also living in this virtual world where they are combined right inside our minds. So my point is that as this technology emerges, we will be creating our own new realities. So there will be a reality, like what we all live in now is the reality of being these bodies that have been around, that evolved over millions of years and, have been the same for over 100,000 years. We are entering that world of Neo-Sapiens where there is going to be a reality beyond anything any human being has experienced in the past.
Patent number 6011991, remote brain computer interface neural monitoring, i.e. via satellite, directed not necessarily by human handlers, but by a computer system that sits on a global information grid in a network-centric environment. They can not only monitor your thoughts, but they can modify your behavior remotely.
If our brains are connected to the internet, and if our brains are all connected, all of us connected, I could literally go into your head and see through your eyes. So all of a sudden, like for a day, like, a lot of us, because you're entrepreneurs, think it would be cool to go inside Elon Musk's head for a day and walk around. Well, Elon Musk may allow people to get that feed and literally live through what he sees.
This technology can also tap into the optical nerve of the target and the auditory system of the target, so that those monitoring the target can see what the target is seeing and hear what the target is hearing. This information is then downloaded and stored on a computer in a highly secure, classified site on servers that are guarded by some of the tightest security in the world. This results in the individual's entire day, everything they see, everything they hear, everything they experience, and everything they feel being recorded till the end of time.
If you're looking at connecting our brains to the internet, one of the things we'll be able to do is we'll be to outsource functions of our brain. So we'll be able to outsource, we'll be able to upload our memories to the cloud. So let's say you don't want to, you want that memory forever, right? You're like, it's automatically probably being stored in the cloud for you without you thinking about it. Just like these automatic backups on your computer, everything, there's a copy and there's redundancy and there's like many versions.
I was previously at the Institute for Neurocomputation at UCSD, as well as with a number of members of my team, and we were focusing really on brain-computer interfaces and on advanced methods for neural state decoding to interpret the signals that come out of our brains and relate them to behavior and cognition. So we provide a RESTful API framework. Actually, we're, I think, the world's first platform for neurocomputation operating on the cloud through a web API interface in real time. So you can push your biosignals to the cloud through a few API calls. Then we have a large amount of sophisticated signal processing that's spun up to make sense of that data. And then with a few more lines of code through, again, a simple REST API, you can get back a meaningful result. And all that happening in real time.
It's a scary proposition to think that every biosignal from us will be one day measured, but if it is, I'd like to know that I'm in control of that data and not the NSA. Oh,
absolutely.
And Catherine Herridge continues her reporting on a place where all that data is heading.
Bluffdale, Utah, 25 miles south of Salt Lake City, the NSA is nearing completion on a gargantuan new project. It's named the Utah Data Center. The NSA will neither confirm nor deny the specifics, but some estimate the center will be capable of storing 5 zettabytes of data, or enough to store every email, cell phone call, Google search and surveillance camera video in America for a very long time. All the NSA would tell us is that the Utah Data Center is a facility for the intelligence community that will have a major focus on cybersecurity. We weren't given access last summer, but we could see it from the sky.
I want you to look real close because right now we're 500 feet over the Utah Data Center, and this is as close as you're going to get without a security clearance.
We can actually see the cranes right now after 12 o'clock.
Wow. From the sky, it's huge.
Yeah, it's gigantic.
It's really a turnkey situation where it can be turned quickly and become a totalitarian state pretty quickly. The capacity to do that is being set up.
That's a chilling assessment from Bill Benny, who worked at the NSA for nearly 4 decades, starting as a data analyst in the days before desktop computers.
A new method developed by MIT researchers involves broadcasting radio frequency signals toward a person, while the signals are also reflected back to the receiver. The captured radio signals are then studied by a deep learning algorithm.
So as we are talking, there's a certain pattern for every word we say. What they're doing is looking at the pattern in the brain, and then they're matching that pattern, they're putting that into a database.
The proof that you are seeking is not available in books. The proof that you are seeking is not available in books.
You may be able to have algorithms sophisticated enough, and they get enough samples, enough data, that the AI could actually learn over time what the general rules are for different words, and then you could apply it to anybody.
It's so seamless, the technology disappears.
You know what? I do. It's literally
Erasing language barriers as we speak.
We call it hallucinating, right? But these would be controlled hallucinations run by algorithms that would give us everything AR would without any glasses.
The system then takes those algorithms and correlates communication and behavior data. When I say communication and behavior data, what I'm referring to is impulses and identifiers, okay? And then that brain activity is then sampled, remotely measured, and then integrated back into R&M data for the purposes of creating a cognitive model of the victim's brain.
Without verbalizing anything, you could literally start to communicate with other people. So my lecture, we could all be standing here silently. And I could just be communicating it to you. I could be talking, you would talk to people, you could literally have conversations with people without ever getting on your phone anywhere in the world. You know, goodbye WeChat or Google Hangouts. We could all just be on our brainwaves, right? Communicating with our friends, they could be dropping in on us. Very strange if we think about it.
So that when that person goes to speak out about it, when they go to seek help from their fellow human beings, and their fellow human beings say, what is it that's happening to you? The target will then say, I'm hearing voices inside my head.
But these would be controlled hallucinations run by algorithms.
And they will conclude that this person must be crazy. And as a result, they will recommend psychological evaluation for that person. You can see the way this is going to go, and the way it is going right now. As good people, helpless people that are being abused and tortured and enslaved and experimented upon in America today, American citizens cry out for help from their fellow Americans, and their fellow Americans say, why don't you take some Prozac because we think you're schizophrenic? When this is a highly technical program. All of the symptoms are induced by a technology that is so fucking sophisticated, it is horrifying beyond description.
But as soon as we connect our brains to the internet, emotions are also data. We could start literally to feel somebody else's pain. And now we say, I feel your pain. We don't really feel their pain. But in the future, we may actually really feel their pain. Like if they're sad, all of a sudden we could tap in, to your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend, and you could be like, oh my God, I feel your pain. I feel your anxiety,
This technology can also be used to manipulate the emotions of the target. It can induce fear, love, hate. It can cause you to be nervous. It can cause you to be confident. It can cause you to be depressed. It can cause you to be happy. It can cause you to feel any fucking emotion at any time by artificially inducing them.
So, like any technology, there are great things we could do, and then there are very horrible things that could result from it that are unanticipated. Now, if somebody hacks into your cell phone or your bank account, they can steal your identity. But it's not your real identity. It's more like your money. And that's bad enough, right? That's pretty bad if you get hacked and they steal your, they do identity theft. But if they're connected, if your brain is connected directly to the internet, then it will be real identity theft. They could take you. They could literally erase you. They could reprogram you in a way without you even knowing it. So you think you're in control of your own will, but it's actually somebody else.
It can literally stop your own thoughts from happening and replace them with other thoughts by sending thoughts to your head. And it's so sophisticated that you cannot tell where these thoughts are coming from. There's no way to discern that they are coming from somewhere other than your own mind. So you can imagine how bad this would be for people that don't even realize this technology exists. And they're having these thoughts, which they think are spontaneous, because being under the influence of this technology now, kind of having been on both sides of it, I am just amazed at the way it works. And I know that the thoughts that they beam into your head originate from the exact same place in your mind that your own natural thoughts originate from. So if I didn't know I was under the influence of this technology, then I would have no idea that anyone was influencing my thoughts at all. And that's exactly what it can be used for. It can be used to sway people in terms of their opinion, to make them go along with a certain agenda. It can be used to turn groups of people or individuals against each other for whatever purpose.
And who do we trust with this technology? Well, apparently not Mark Zuckerberg. He didn't do that good a job at protecting our data. Do we trust a government? Do we trust Donald Trump? Who do we trust? Yeah, decentralized, a blockchain, right? You're going to have technology that protects us. Technology which really doesn't exist today, and it has to be so foolproof, and we have to have so much faith in it that we're willing to open up our brains to that potential of being hacked. So my final slide here is that, our future could go two ways, right? We could literally create heaven on earth. So we are all one giant being, and we are all working in unison, and we are experiencing these amazing things. Or it could be hell, where there's some evil AI or evil people controlling everything we do, and we're more like zombies, where we don't even know it. Like we think we're free and we're not actually free.
One of the things I'm concerned about is the technology as it's being researched and developed in Seattle utilizes emotion manipulation and behavior manipulation without the gang stalking and without the voice to skull aspects. And so this use of the technology can be done very covertly to the point where the person it's being used against will not know that this technology is being used against them. And that is one of my main concerns and one of the reasons why I want to bring more light to this technology and to this issue, because this technology could potentially be being used against tens to hundreds of millions of Americans every day. I've mentioned in some of my podcasts how there are field effects where they will not direct this technology at an individual, but create a general field of frequency in a geographical area so that everybody that within that geographical area is feeling the effects of the technology. It's more of a general application of the technology instead of an individual specific application of the technology. And I have seen this done, and it is remarkable how effective it is, because you will walk down the street of Seattle and literally see people all in a bad mood, all at the same time, and they do not know each other. And then you go over a block or two to a different office building and you walk in and the exact same thing's going on there. It's very, very concerning. So within that then, that overall bubble or area of frequency where everybody, let's say, is in a bad mood, they can still inject what would be a individual specific frequency to the targeted individual themselves. Let's say the homeless person in Seattle that's being experimented on 24 hours a day. So they will be under the influence of the general agitated mood or bad mood that everybody else is in, and then they can more further be manipulated by the frequency that's being directed solely at them.
Maybe more than any other city, Seattle, Washington seems to represent what America is becoming. Amazon, Microsoft, Starbucks are all based in the city or its suburbs. Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, lives there. But along with unfathomable wealth, there is also desperate poverty and widespread degradation. Seattle's homeless population is surging. The city is suffocating under garbage produced by hundreds of homeless camps. A local news broadcast recently grabbed national headlines by warning that Seattle is dying. The city becomes unlivable for regular families.
Do you think drugs are one of the primary drivers of homelessness?
I think mental health is the foundation of a lot of addiction and other things.
Homelessness is complicated. Drugs aren't the only cause. Take a look at this picture of people living in broken down RVs. In the background, the world headquarters of Starbucks. Like most of the West Coast, Seattle's economic boom has not been distributed evenly. Not close. When wages at the low end of the economic spectrum fail to keep up with the rising cost of living, you wind up with a place where people living in their cars are flanked by billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates. So what causes homelessness?
Everything that's done by this program is meant to have a psychological effect, and the psychological effect is meant to complement the effect that the technology is having on the individual, so that they are brought to a place in their life where they're isolated, they're broke, they're unemployed, they have no family, they have no friends, and nobody in the general public can track or trace anything that's being done to them because the technology is remote and it's wireless, and there's usually no physical signs left on the individual that anything is being done to them.
Since the release of Eric Johnson's documentary, Seattle is Dying, which depicts an epidemic of street homelessness, addiction, crime, and disorder, city elites have launched a coordinated information campaign targeted at voters frustrated with the city's response to homelessness. Earlier this month, leaked documents revealed that a group of prominent nonprofits, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Campion Advocacy Group Fund, the Rakes Foundation, and the Ballmer Group hired a PR firm, Pyramid Communications, to conduct polling, create messaging, and disseminate the resulting content through a network of silent partners in academia, the press, government, and the nonprofit sector. The campaign, #SeattleForAll, is a case study in what writer James Lindsay calls idea laundering, creating misinformation and legitimizing it as an objective truth through repetition in sympathetic media. The key messages of the campaign include a number of misleading claims, including Seattle is making progress to end homelessness. 1 in 4 people experiencing homelessness in our community struggle with drug or alcohol abuse, and 62% of Seattle voters believe we are not spending enough to address homelessness. All 3 contentions fail to meet basic scrutiny. Street homelessness has increased 131% over the past 5 years.
Was here not so long ago on a tragic night that has many wondering what could make a man snap and lose control.
Kind of my last words. It's really unfortunate that I have to make this video. You see, I am a victim of covert harassment and electronic harassment and gang stalking. I'm what's called a targeted individual.
On November 20th, 2014, 31-year-old Byron May walks into Strozier Library on the campus of Florida State University and opens fire. 3 people are injured. May tries to leave campus, and a shootout with police in front of the library ends violently. The medical examiner confirming May was shot 24 times by police.
It's become a sadly familiar routine, a mass shooting followed by thoughts and prayers, calls for gun control, and lingering doubts that anything will change. Mass shootings in America are not new, but for a long time they were rare. In the past decade, they've become more frequent and a lot more deadly. Sandy Hook, Orlando, the Vegas Strip, Parkland, and now El Paso and Dayton on the same day.
6:03, and we continue with a deadly school shooting, and we're learning more about what confessed gunman Nicholas Cruz told investigators during an 11-hour interrogation. The transcript is more than 200 pages long.
And while it was heavily redacted, we've learned that Cruz told the BSO detective that he heard a demon in his head.
That police shooting down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. As we said, 3 police officers were killed, 3 others were wounded when they were ambushed by a gunman who was dressed in all black.
That suspect, who was killed by other officers at the scene, has now been identified as Gavin Long. He's a former Marine whose 29th birthday was Sunday, the day of this attack.
And a lot of TIs, they don't even know that harassment is a felony. Stalking with harassment is a damn felony. That's a felony charge. You definitely have the right to defend yourself. And if someone is, and you know, gang stalking is, they're trying to attempt you, they're trying to make you attempt suicide. That's attempted murder. If someone is trying to attempt you to force you into suicide, isn't that attempted murder? Come on now. Let's open our eyes, get it together. Hey, defend yourself at all costs, stand in your righteousness, die in your righteousness. Period.
A shooting at the oldest Navy facility in the country, home to 15,000, including the Navy's top officer, and only a few miles from the White House and Capitol building. Panic ensued in Washington, D.C. today as the death toll mounted.
We got a report on the 4th floor, a male with a shotgun, multiple shots fired, multiple people down. We're still waiting for the okay that the scene has been secured.
The FBI released images of the weapon, a Remington 870 shotgun, which had messages etched on the side. Better off this way. And my ELF weapon, an apparent reference to extremely low frequency waves. Officials reckon he believed he was being controlled by them in the months before he killed 12 people.
At this point, I can confirm that there are multiple indicators that Alexis held a delusional belief that he was being controlled or influenced by extremely low frequency, or ELF, electromagnetic waves.
U.S. and Cuban officials say they're investigating allegations of a possible acoustic attack on U.S. Embassy staff in Havana last year.
Just to add to the confusion, there is speculation coming out of Washington that it may actually have been a third country that was involved in this.
Now Russia is the leading suspect. NBC News has learned, according to 3 U.S. officials,
and 2 others briefed on the investigation. Evidence, they say, backed up by highly secret communications intercepts collected during a lengthy and ongoing investigation involving the FBI, CIA, and other agencies. U.S. officials also tell NBC News investigators now believe the Americans were deliberately targeted.
It's going to be very hard to stop. It is going to be very hard to stop. Think about it. You know, it's sort of a one-way path. I've never seen humanity roll back technology, but we need to start talking about this now.
Every single man, woman, and child in the United States of America will be under the influence of this technology, and as you can see going forward, what's going to happen is a dividing line is going to be drawn in America. And it's not going to be Democrat or Republican or black and white, rich, poor, you know, Jew, Gentile, religious differences, whatever it is. It's going to be based on who is on the right and the wrong side of this technology, who is on the right and the wrong side of this program. And so if you are not a part of this program, then there is a very real risk that you are going to become a full-blown 24/7 targeted individual. And this technology at that point, when it is nationwide, will be used by automated computer, supercomputer software programming that will manipulate the emotions and the behavior and the thoughts of everybody in the United States of America. And it can all be done remotely. It's very much like the microchip kind of tracking the New World Order, this entire, you know, control grid that's supposed to be rolled out against the American people someday. And I'm here to tell you that it's already here. There isn't going to come a day where there's troops in the streets and tanks rolling down your neighborhood and riot gear and all this stuff. We might have isolated incidents like that. It might get like that every once in a while, but the true control grid is this technology, voice to skull, hive mind, behavior manipulation technology. And it can all be done remotely. It can be done simply by targeting you with the frequency, locking into the resonant frequency of your DNA and your mind, and in that manner completely track and trace and control you 24 hours a day. And when you consider that use of it and the fact that it is used for emotion and thought and behavior modification, then we could potentially be looking at many, many millions of people across the country that are under the influence of the technology today, right now.
At the same time the OPC became operational, the National Security Council approved a radical new policy. It secretly authorized the CIA to conduct programs which were officially non-existent, thereby bypassing the U.S. Congress. The NSC ordered that the new operations be deniable, meaning planned and executed, so that any U.S. government responsibility for them is not evident to unauthorized persons, and that for those uncovered, the U.S. government can plausibly disclaim any responsibility.
And that is really the genesis of unacknowledged special access projects. Now, a special access project just means you have to have you know, the clearance to get to it, and be read into it, as they say in military speak. But an unacknowledged project, I just want to go through a minute how that works. Let's say that this gentleman is a 4-star general, and I'm a colonel. I made you a 4-star general. But I'm in an unacknowledged special access project dealing with this or some other subject. It can be other things as well. If I am in an unacknowledged project, I am told, and I have one of my most senior military advisors has been in multiple of these. He was in one project that was $2 to $3 billion. He knew it was more than 2 and almost 3 billion in a project that was off the books, no accounting. President didn't know, Congress didn't know, tightly held. A military guy working with some corporate folks. And he told me, he says, here's how it works. He says, they take you to a SCIF, a Secure Communication Intelligence Facility, SCIF. Take all of the equipment off of you, any guns off, cell phones, watches, nothing. Anything metallic. You go into this underground facility, and there's a meeting, and he said, hey, you have a come into Jesus talk. And what happens is that you are told that only the people in that room are read into and cleared to this unacknowledged special access project. And if you speak of it outside of that circle of people, there's one person there with a gun and a bullet. He takes the bullet out. He says, it has your name on it if you speak to anyone, and I mean anyone, your wife, the president, your commander, about what we're doing. And that is how it works. This is not a conspiracy theory. I've been in these skiffs. I've been in a couple places, and I can tell you that is exactly how it operates.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not public. Mistakes are buried, not headlined.
In the September of 2001, the world changed. And I'm not talking about 9/11. I'm talking about 1 week later, when the internet world changed. This was the introduction of Code Red. Code Red wasn't an email virus. It wasn't a zombie, a Trojan. It was all of the above. It was the world's first complex blended threat, and it went around the world in 3 days. By September 21st, it had infected 2.2 million systems worldwide. Governments took notice because they realized they could take this technology and bring it up to a whole other level.
Hacking DNA?
Well, they've been doing that for a while. I mean, putting all sorts of information in DNA, storing and encoding books and other long digital files in DNA. But this is using CRISPR-Cas9 to essentially have your DNA spy on you.
It's gotten to a point of a confluence, a merging between man and machine in a digital cyber world where we can never tell them apart. A digital cyber world where the battles are not being fought with bombs and bullets, but with bits and bytes. This is the age of the cyber spy.
This idea of using CRISPR-Cas9 to insert spy genes into your DNA opens up a really interesting world, especially when you look at the possibility of quantum computing.
So let me share that with you now. I'm going to take you down a digital wormhole. A wormhole, by the way, that we plan to send those attackers. There is another war going on beneath the surface.
The new novel coronavirus is a man-made new form of neuro-warfare unleashed on the world under a secret United Nations protocol using a viral delivery system to strong-arm the human race, to redesign and restructure the biological bloodstock and DNA gene pool of the entire human race, to forcefully integrate the human race into a new cybernetic evolution of mankind by redesigning and re-engineering the DNA patterns.
The modern type of bioweapons are frequency controlled. Yeah. So they don't even start doing any harm before they're not activated. We saw that, for example, and this is an interesting story, when we look into what's happening in the US. Sentient world simulation run by the intelligence community that is basically picking up data from transhumanistic technologies of all the people, creating a real world simulation.
You see, if you're going to defend yourself against technology that replaces people, then the next step of convergence is to create technology that behaves like people, that in a digital world you cannot tell one from the other. We're capable of creating massive networks so real that you cannot tell them apart.
And then the plan is to reverse the signal from the antenna systems they run, which is also always the phase array antenna technology. And they want to reverse the signals and basically to turn US citizens into biorobots.
They can biocode the DNA so that it's integrated into an algorithm, and then this algorithm can be transmitted from cell towers, it could be transmitted from aircraft, it could be transmitted from satellites, just like a cell phone.
Satellites link the sender and the receiver. A computer multiplexer routes the voice signal of the sender through microwave towers to a very specific defined location, or cell. The receiver is located and tracked with pinpoint accuracy by their biometrics, DNA, and brainwave patterns. However, the receiver is not a cellular phone. It is the human brain.
So that three people can be standing right next to you and nobody's going to feel the harassment except you, because these signals are biocoded to your body's tuning only. And then they can send down V2K, they can send down any symptom they want, because they're in full control of the bioresonance of your bioenergy.
And once the person is infected with this virus, the coronavirus, okay, these nanoparticulates migrate through the bloodstream to the brain and adhere to the neurotransmitters of the victim's brain and begin to speak to and decode those neurotransmitters through a process called directed energy flashing.
So this is all done by this DNA. There's a new field of research. They realized that the base pairs can be mounted into a chain in a way that functions like a computer, like a logical element. And this is if you visualize this, it's like the old method with telephones, when you were dialing with sound. Every base pair has a resonance frequency. It's somewhere in the terahertz range. And if you hit the right frequency, it is opening, like a light conducting unit. And if you have a chain of these base pairs that react on different frequencies, you need a sequence of sounds to open all the fragments to make the entire thing conductive. So it goes like do 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 do, and then the next part of the genetic thing is activated to either produce light or to produce poison. And this is something beautiful out of their view of the world, because if you bring this RNA or DNA into the human body, You can kind of take a radio signal and activate it from outside to produce any substance you want or to produce any light you want. Light is emotion, light is thought, light is everything. Everything we sense as experience. There was a community of like 200 scientists who didn't want to support this development anymore, and they united to a group and started to speak out as a group to the public. Their families were assassinated with radio frequencies, and the symptoms of them dying were very, very, very similar to coronavirus death. Like having flu-like symptoms, then going to hospital with lung infection, and then dying from organ failure. So apparently we do have something that is related to electromagnetic warfare that shows the same symptoms. Like the flu, that is easily mistaken. And then we can basically look to see in the United States, this is all a hidden agenda. Nobody is officially talking about the things, even if you have the terms that describe the technological system. So this is an agenda that is rolled out in the hidden in the United States. In China, it is actually the opposite. Yeah. In China, this idea of having a central AI controlling everything is rolled out in public, being sold as an AI goddess that is kind of the loving mother of the state, taking care of all people, making sure that everything is prospering in harmony. This is how they sell these developments. And still, this is also absolutely public. Every citizen is getting a kind of a ranking system of collecting points of being nice or naughty.
Yeah, the social credit system.
Yeah, social credit system. So and people support that because Chinese people are afraid of each other, so they want each other to be cancelled out in case of getting naughty. This is their mentality, and they fully accept that. So this is on a completely different level. And what we do know is that Wuhan area is leading in 5G rollout worldwide. So at a certain point, you need, if you have this agenda that says, let's turn everybody into AI-controlled biorobot to make sure nobody dances out of the line, at a certain point, this needs to be tested to gather data to make it function better. And at a certain point, it comes to the moment where all the people who do not comply, who do not function as AI robots, need to be removed.
Now, I got to be honest here, we couldn't show you everything. We had to actually change a lot of names, scribble out some IP addresses, and we're not allowed to bring you as deep into the network as we want. It's a good thing, because if we showed you everything, we'd have to shoot you. So we've come to the end of our journey of convergence of man and machine, of confluence between two separate streams that come together to make things more powerful. We've seen technology go from completely separate from man to leveraged, to replacing man, to behaving like man. What comes after behaving, I wonder? Well, if history is any guide, the question shouldn't be if this technology will one day profoundly impact our lives. The question should be, will we ever even realize it? Thank you very much.
I think all our society is run by insane people.
If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. Don't let it happen. It depends on you.
We live in a cybernetic society. Cybernetics is about continuous data collection. It's a system that requires the continuous influx of information to inform the feedback loops it runs on. Those who program the algorithms can use these loops to alter all kinds of things: feelings, thoughts, beliefs, behavior, and ultimately reality. The Chinese government has instituted a high-tech, integrated data vacuuming social credit score system to continuously monitor the trustworthiness and obedience of its 1.4 billion citizens.
China is creating a social credit system. It's a plan to regulate business and citizen behavior with various incentive schemes,
the full nationwide rollout of which is expected next year. Each citizen will be tracked, rated, and then rewarded or punished by the government with the help of its high-tech corporate partners.
China's State Council unveiled the plan in 2014, saying it would allow the trustworthy to roam everywhere under heaven, while making it hard for the discredited to take a single step.
In Wired's article, Inside China's Vast New Experiment in Social Ranking, the social credit system is described succinctly. For the Chinese Communist Party, social credit is an attempt at a softer, more invisible authoritarianism. The goal is to nudge people toward behaviors ranging from energy conservation to obedience to the party.
Social credit scores award or remove points based on behavior.
It's big data meets Big Brother.
This will be a world with no more personal experiences, only transactions for the social credit system.
This knows every person, every bike, every car, every bus.
That's because it essentially turns every public interaction into a transaction where points can be earned or lost.
Imagine a society where everything you do, everything you say, and everything you buy is controlled and evaluated by the authorities. So now, the government is tracking citizens' behavior from smoking on a train to jaywalking.
A massive centralized database makes it possible for authorities and some private companies to identify nearly anyone by capturing their face.
If you do something bad, you get points docked. If you do something good and you happen to be spotted, you get a boost.
Scores are docked for things like littering, a messy yard, gossip. A person's reputation is scored on a scale of 350 to 950.
The country already has an estimated 176 million cameras.
Everywhere she goes, Ouyang Haoyu is followed. What she buys, how she behaves, is tracked and scored to show how responsible and trustworthy she is.
Yeah. They're going through people's chat histories, like on WeChat and stuff, to look for potential messages and stuff.
那么其实政府已经掌握了我们很多资料，然后政府方也掌握了一些我们个人信用，就比如说是否遵纪守法，以及我们的教育程度。那我觉得如果把所有的大数据，那对我们来讲其实是更高效的。
Haoyu, with a good score of 752, is okay with it. Most people are.
It's a mechanism that pushes you to become a better citizen.
The authorities insist this program will allow them to improve security for citizens.
A lot of camera will keep the safety is really good. We can accept it.
The system is run on continuous surveillance paired with a series of digital blacklists.
Currently, the backbone of the system is a set of blacklists,
reportedly more than a dozen of which exist at the national level.
Thanks to advances in artificial intelligence and facial recognition.
Punishable offenses include things like playing video games for too long or wasting money on frivolous purchases or posting unapproved thoughts on social media. But we'll get to that in a minute. The system officially began rolling out test pilots in 2014, and the country has since deployed millions of CCTV surveillance cameras. As of 2019, 8 out of the 10 most surveilled cities in the world are now located in China. Chongqing, considered the world's most surveilled city on the planet, boasts some 2.58 million CCTV cameras. That's one for every 6 citizens. 30 times the number of cameras that are found currently in Washington, D.C.
And we focus a lot on the repressive aspects of this, right? They use surveillance, gait recognition technology, face recognition technology, suppression of dissidents in Xinjiang and all these things. The other half of it is it's not just about making dissidents' lives harder, it's about making everyone else's lives better.
In other words, every person's every move in public is being watched pretty much all the time.
这个摄像头现在已经是这个到处等于是无处不在了。
And it plans to have more than 600 million installed by 2020.
我最担心的是我个人的所有的这个行动行为，我都会被监控到，这是非常可怕的一个事情。
But this isn't just about surveillance. It's surveillance paired with AI and facial recognition, which has also been rolled out all over the place. Chinese people are using their faces to access everything from apps to ATMs to getting on planes and subways to entering into school and office buildings to paying for their fast food.
This KFC in Beijing, you can even use your face to get meal recommendations.
All with their face.
The room is filmed real time. The grid you see here is analyzing my face. Our cameras can now recognize me, even from the side or when my head rotates 30 degrees to the left or right, or 15 degrees up or down.
And that's just the start. Police are walking around like it's Minority Report, wearing sunglasses with built-in facial recognition, scanning everyone for, quote, persons of interest.
What look like metal detectors.
Right.
But they're actually, they've got cameras on either side.
In several cities, including Shenzhen, authorities have launched facial recognition systems that recognize jaywalkers, then splash their faces on giant screens looming over the streets in an effort to shame them before sending them a fine to their phone. At some street corners, an alarm is even sounded when the jaywalker steps off the sidewalk, so that the moment their face is captured by the system will look even more ridiculous, kind of like what a theme park roller coaster cam might capture. The system doesn't just post the embarrassing moment, it also posts the person's name and identification number, and in some reports I saw, a person's address was even listed under their face as well. AI and facial recognition has also been rolled out in Chinese schools. Some have launched facial recognition programs that go well beyond monitoring for attendance. They also scan students' engagement and behavior in the classroom in real time. The system, dubbed the Intelligent Classroom Behavior Management System, scans the entire class every 30 seconds repeatedly all day long, looking for facial expressions it can categorize as neutral, happy, sad, scared, disappointed, angry, or surprised. Certain behaviors are also analyzed, such as how many times a student raises their hand, whether or not they're reading or writing, and if they're listening or not. Obviously, all of this gets the young children ready for the digital panopticon they are going to grow up into. Every person's behavior is tracked not just in public, but also online. In 2018, the New York Times announced that Google was reportedly building China a special censored search engine. In a first for any country anywhere, beginning December 1st, 2019, new legislation in China will require all citizens to use facial recognition in order to sign up for internet services or to get a new cell phone number. And residents will also be banned from transferring their numbers to someone else. Obviously, all of this makes it much easier to verify people online and track and trace them. All of this surveillance and AI is being used to assign China's residents with their social credit score, which goes up and down based on digitally tracked and traced behaviors that are being analyzed throughout the day. The government says this system will, quote, purify society and create a socially credible environment by rewarding people that the government deems trustworthy and punishing those who aren't. People with higher scores will have access to nicer housing, improved health care, more travel options, and better schools to send their children to. China's biggest dating website has also agreed to boost the profiles of people with high scores so they can get more dates. High rankers also receive discounts on their energy bills, and they don't have to pay deposits on things like upscale hotel rooms and other rentals. They also get better interest rates on loans. Like putting a kid's drawing up on the fridge, citizens with high rankings who do good things also get posted on community boards and are given prizes like trophies. People with lower scores, however, it's something straight out of a Black Mirror episode where the digital world takes over reality and imparts real-life consequences.
Bad score means public shame and worse. Huang Huijun lost a court case and didn't pay. Now he's on a government blacklist. I can't buy airplane or train tickets, he says.
Liu was a journalist who was ordered by a court to apologize for a series of tweets he wrote and was then told his apology was insincere. I can't buy property. My child can't go to private school, he says.
Hong Shun-kwai is a former magazine editor who was ousted by the government. He feels like he's under constant surveillance.
Being discredited makes it hard to get a job.
Who scrapes by, writing for an online publication. His investigative reports are on hold. In August 2013, he was detained without trial after exposing a senior party member's links with illegal prostitution. This is a recreation based on Hu's accounts.
How far into people's daily mundane activities does this go?
The government and the people running the plan would like to go as deeply as possible to determine how to allocate benefits and also how to impact and shape their behavior.
You feel you're being controlled by the list all the time.
Over the course of a year, he was interrogated more than 70 times.
Also how to impact and shape their behavior.
And there are so many ways to get your score lowered. Everything from not paying bills on time or traffic fines on time to political dissidence against a party, which includes a lot of things, counts against a person's score. So far, China's digital social credit score system has physically blocked people from taking over 11 million flights and 4 million train trips. People who are ranked into the lowest category, known as Laolai, probably not pronouncing that right, are forced to take special slow trains and sit in the lowest classes of those slow trains. The children of people with lower scores have been banned from attending better schools. People with low scores are kept out of the best hotels. And the government encourages businesses to consult with the blacklist before they hire people. So low scores also mean crappy jobs. People with low scores can't apply for credit. They're required to pay higher prices and deposits on certain things. They're even given slower internet speeds. They're barred from buying certain high-end products until their scores are raised. And some cities are even enforcing special credit systems specifically for dog owners. And points are deducted if they're caught not using a leash, or if their dog causes a public nuisance or barks too much. They lose too many points and these people get their dog taken away. But it doesn't even remotely stop there. The Chinese social media platform WeChat, the company's most popular instant messaging platform, even includes a map app that alerts citizens when they're within 500 meters of anyone deemed a Laolai at any given time. Tapping on a person's name offers up their personal information, their address, all of that, and the app actually encourages and allows people to identify debtors in public and then tattle on them if they see that person buying something using money that they should be paying their debts with instead. And as if that wasn't enough, it has even been reported that people with debt issues are required to have a ringtone on their cell phone, which sounds like a siren going off, which is accompanied by a verbal warning to the person calling that person that they should be careful in their business dealings with the phone's owner because of his or her low social credit score, which further identifies and publicly shames people with lower scores. Of one Chinese journalist who was forced to spend a year in jail for, quote, fabricating and spreading rumors after reporting on the shady dealings of a vice mayor, Wired reported that he effectively became a second-class citizen who was banned from most forms of travel, could only book the lowest classes of seat on the slowest trains, couldn't buy certain consumer goods, stay at luxury hotels, or get any bank loans. Worse still, the blacklist is public. And as we've seen in the implementation of other computer-run systems just like this the world over, mistakes go uncorrected all the time. And points can be lowered for a lot more reasons. I mean, it's seemingly endless how many ways they can lower your points in this system. Points are lowered for discussing alternate versions of the government's official history of events online, posting political opinions without permission, or just generally posting any information that might in any way embarrass the government, no matter how true that information is. And apparently people's scores have been lowered even just for being friends with someone else who does any of those things. So that means that people will actually have to start deciding if they like their privileges in society more than they like being honest or having friends who are honest. Having to choose between social credit and social exile. Between being able to freely travel or freely think. As tech entrepreneur Rick Falkvinge of Private Internet Access wrote back in 2015, what China is doing here is selectively breeding its population to select against the trait of critical independent thinking. Now, he says this may not be on purpose. He says it's nevertheless the effect of giving only obedient people the social ability to have successful children. And neighbors better get along too, because if they don't, their points get lowered.
Information collectors like Zhou Aini are paid to report on their neighbors. Her quota, 10 entries a month.
And their personal business gets splashed all over community boards for everyone else to see and then publicly shame them. While some people might say it's good if shame gets people to behave better, please realize that the lesson imparted here really isn't about the value of being a decent person of high character and moral values. Instead, it's about living under constant fear, constant tyrannical surveillance, being afraid of public scrutiny and shame, while sucking up to authority and the government. Which just reminds me of all those North Koreans fake crying over Kim Jong-il's death because they were afraid of being punished if they didn't. And the whole system is set up so that once your points start going down, you start to spiral downward. As Wired reports, first your score drops, then your friends hear you're on the blacklist, and fearful that their scores might be affected, they quietly drop you as a contact. The algorithm then notices that, your score plummets further. You can see how this just keeps going. The system has also been used to target specific ethnic and religious groups under claims that the government is countering separatism and terrorism.
The facial scanning in places like Xinjiang, where they're very worried about religious uprisings.
But intense surveillance and facial scans have been implemented everywhere from grocery stores to gas stations in areas where China's ethnic minority Muslim population resides. And it's now been estimated that over 1 million of these residents have been put into Chinese re-education camps. And the clips that the Chinese government has allowed to come out of this, even in the good light they try to show it, are just horrifying.
China has begun taking a few selected journalists inside. This is what it wants the world to see. Offered up as proof that these are not prisoners, but students, willingly being guided away from extremism. Is it your choice to be here?
就是我以前因非法法律意识淡薄被个人的极端主义和恐怖主义思想的影响，村委会的孙静发现，他对我说：“这么好的学校，你可以去参加，转化自己的思想。”
And the ways to earn credit, it's not just paying one's bills on time and refraining from jaywalking. In 2018, China's rubber stamp parliament of loyal party members removed presidential term limits, allowing President Xi Jinping to remain president indefinitely. And it's a good thing, too, because the government's publicity department has released a new app called Studying the Great Nation, which is built around allowing citizens to do all of their daily business and communications through this government app while they earn points by watching videos of the president, reading stories about him, and taking quizzes on government information and party doctrine.
The most popular app in China these days is not TikTok or WeChat, but rather a mobile application called Studying the Great Nation. So as soon as you install this app, you will ask for access to your phone's photo, videos, and also your contacts. The app itself feels like a love child between WeChat, Google Calendar, and Xi Jinping thought. You can schedule a meeting, a video conference, or send your colleagues a message. But the most prominent feature is China's president. The app highlights the most important stories for users to study. Of course, all of the stories are about President Xi Jinping.
And as the South China Morning Post reported, people are even gaming the system, using the desktop version of the app to play videos of the president all night in the background in their own homes so they can earn more points.
Another useful tip is to use the desktop version of the app and click open a bunch of President Xi video and let them play in the background. That way you can score a lot of points. So there we go. A rather effortless way to immerse yourself in party doctrine.
I mean, why allow the government to wash your brain when people can just be induced with points to brainwash themselves? Studying the Great Nation has quickly become the most popular app in China, reportedly. And the thing is there's no getting out of this as a Chinese citizen. Everyone there is under constant surveillance to the point that while posting something controversial on social media at this point would be considered reckless, not posting at all in an effort to just avoid the system altogether would also look suspicious. So in that way, everyone's going to be required to participate in this. The Daily Bell put it succinctly. Eventually, everyone will mimic the behavior that the government rewards, and they will create a new citizen.
Dear passengers, people who travel without tickets or behave disorderly or smoke in public areas will be punished according to regulations, and the behavior will be recorded in the individual credit information system. To avoid any negative record of personal credit, please follow the relevant regulations and help with the orders on the train and at the station.
The social credit system isn't even fully off the ground yet, and it's been used in so many ways, it's hard to list them all. This is just the beginning. It hasn't even officially fully started yet.
To get toilet paper, tourists now have to stand facing this facial recognition dispenser. The rule is simple. No more than 3 sheets per person. No more than 3 sheets per person.
No more than 3 sheets per person.
No more than 3 sheets per person.
And I read article after article. People are doing all kinds of things. They're donating their time for points. They're donating their blood for points, which is apparently worth 5 points, just by the way. In one village, it was reported that people were told the government would give them points for donating money to charity.
To raise his score, Zhang gets in line at a local community office to donate money the government says will go to charity.
捐100的居多，再有捐1000的、600的、500的都有，都可以加分。
I mean, think about that just for a second. In a system like that, points aren't even earned. They're technically just bought.
现在通过做好人好事，通过这个捐款呐、加分呐，我现在高铁票能买了，终于成为是正常人了。
One could easily see the wealth gap take on a whole new dimension, where the social credit system essentially works to keep poor people down while becoming little more than a playground for the wealthy. And this is what happens after people have been fed into a system of continuous data transfer, where they've gotten more and more used to freely and continuously giving up their data in the name of safety and convenience. A system where they've now taken everyone's data and openly exploited and weaponized it. The futuristic, technological, Hegelian dialectic economic hybrid of capitalism and communism is unfolding before our eyes like something out of George Orwell's dizziest nightmares.
Tourists now have to stand facing this facial recognition dispenser. No more than 3 sheets per person.
And the thing is we're already seeing the infrastructure for this system being rolled out across the rest of the world. In the background of all the upheaval, for example, Chinese telecoms giant ZTE is currently helping Venezuela build its own Chinese-style social credit system. Earlier this year, the European Parliament, which represents all EU citizens, has approved the creation of one of the world's largest biometric databases. Employees in Sweden are voluntarily microchipping themselves now just for access to things at their workplace. India's been running the world's largest biometric ID program experiment, where people have to scan their fingerprints to receive their subsistence rations. And it's now being reported that some citizens who the AI system has failed to recognize by their fingerprints have reportedly starved to death. Countries like France that have passed anti-mask laws have made it illegal now to hide or cover one's face in public, which seems unrelated at first glance back when it happened in 2010, but ultimately that 2010 law will now make the deployment of facial recognition systems that much more effective down the road, as it was recently announced that France is in the process of rolling out a nationwide facial recognition ID program. Although the French government has preemptively promised not to use it to, quote, keep tabs on its citizens the way that China does, I would add, for now. The problem is that once it's in place, there won't be much stopping them from making the decision to do so in the future. Earlier this year in London, a city that's already swarming with CCTV cameras every single place you look, the police trialed live facial recognition technology throughout the city, and one man tried to pull his jumper over his face and put his head down to avoid being scanned, so police swarmed him and demanded his identification. He promptly told the cops to piss off, so they gave him a 90-pound public order fine for swearing. After the story went viral in the media, the Metropolitan Police released a statement ridiculously claiming that anyone who declines to be scanned will not necessarily be viewed as suspicious. As the tech becomes more entrenched, the system is slowly creeping in all over the place. Here in America, we've already seen companies releasing systems to monitor and track employees throughout their workday.
Future of office life, high-tech tracking devices that can monitor your entire day on the job.
And just like a Fitbit, it's with you all day long. The same ID badge that opens office doors can now track your every move and more.
We're essentially able to augment those ID badges to figure out in real time really what people are doing at work.
Major cities like San Diego have deployed networks of smart lights in the name of safety and efficiency.
Those aren't just new lights, they're smart lights, a sophisticated array of LED fixtures with built-in sensors and cameras connected over a wireless network.
Police have been tapping into networks of Ring surveillance camera doorbells in an effort to monitor neighborhoods throughout the country. And government agencies and companies alike have been checking people's social media profiles as part of job application processes for years now. In fact, earlier this year, some insurance companies were approved to start evaluating customer social media feeds when setting their premium rates. And we already know getting banned by companies like Uber or Airbnb can limit a person's ability to travel if that's the way they do it. As Wired notes, most Americans have dozens of scores, many of them drawn from behavioral and demographic metrics similar to those used in China, and most of them held by companies that give us no chance to opt out. In 2012, Facebook patented a method of credit assessment that could consider the credit scores of people in someone's Facebook network. The patent described a tool that arrives at an average credit score for someone based on their Facebook friends and rejects a loan application if the average is below a certain minimum. So Facebook has already been thinking about this years ago. It says you could imagine a future where people are watching to see if their friend's credit is dropping and then dropping their friends if that would affect them, says Frank Pasquale, a data expert at University of Maryland Carey School of Law. That's terrifying. Facebook, for its part, claims that it just comes up with these patents. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to use them, but the fact that it has it at all should tell you something. I mean, the bottom line here is there's an extrajudicial system that's being built out of Silicon Valley that cares nothing for traditional due process and legal rights because it can go around them. Earlier this year, Fast Company's Mike Elgin wrote, "An increasing number of societal privileges related to transportation, accommodations, communications, and the rates we pay for services are either controlled by technology companies or affected by how we use technology services. And Silicon Valley's rules for being allowed to use their services are getting stricter. If current trends hold, it's possible that in the future a majority of misdemeanors and even some felonies will be punished not by Washington, D.C., but by Silicon Valley. It's a slippery slope away from democracy and towards corporatocracy. In the future, law enforcement may be determined less by the Constitution and legal code and more by end-user license agreements. These systems that are being put in place are like giant one-way mirrors being held up to society because as citizens, especially here in America, it's impossible to challenge the assessments of us when algorithms are proprietary secrets, first of all, and we're not even allowed to know how our friendly data brokers are rating us or even how many assessments on us exist at this point. We don't even know. On top of that, people are now willingly covering their own homes in surveillance cameras and these always listening smart speaker devices that are linked to these same companies. I mean, essentially, technology is slowly grooming the very concept of privacy out of modern humanity altogether. And while governments and companies are spying on us, spying on ourselves, on a global scale, billionaires like Bill Gates are investing in the rollout of worldwide camera systems that will record and monitor the entire planet in real time. Cameras which can zero in on any location on Earth and just beam live video streams. Supposedly, this is going to help fight forest fires and illegal fishing operations, but I mean, come on, they're turning this place into one giant high-tech panopticon. And the AI, we're told, just keeps getting smarter. Now you have companies like IBM who've deployed artificial intelligence programs that can predict with 95% accuracy whether or not an employee is likely to quit, thereby endowing human resource managers with a sort of mind-reading ability they can use to attempt to engage and keep said employee from quitting. Stores like Walgreens have admitted they're testing out smart cooler systems with iris tracking capabilities that will scan shoppers' faces and analyze them to make inferences on their age and gender and other data in order to more precisely target them with products. Malls in Canada are using similar shopper tracking systems. And incentive programs which trade data for a little savings up front, like when Whole Foods scans Amazon Prime shoppers' accounts for an additional 10% off sale items at the register, then use all of that data in much the same way for future targeted marketing campaigns. But the bottom line is that all of this data that we're constantly putting out all day long when we move to and fro everything that we do and engage in here is creating a digital footprint of where someone has been in the real world and what they did while they were there. And it's only 2019, so we've only just begun to glimpse how far such technology might go. Back in 2016, Washington Post reported on an Israeli startup which claims its technology can take one look at a person's face and realize character traits that are undetectable to the human eye. The company is called Faceception, and it announced that it had already signed a contract with the Homeland Security Agency to help identify terrorists, of course. But, quote, the company said its technology can also be used to identify everything from great poker players to extroverts, pedophiles, geniuses, and white-collar criminals. We understand the human much better than other humans understand each other, said Faceception Chief Executive Shai Gilboa. Our personality is determined by our DNA and reflected in our face. It's a kind of signal. I mean, if that's not neo-eugenics, I don't know what is. And just like in China, schools here in the US have begun rolling out facial recognition software in the name of safety and for measuring student engagement, quote unquote. Even Taylor Swift is now deploying facial recognition at concerts, reportedly to ward off stalkers. And here in the United States, facial recognition is being embedded into society without safeguards for privacy or regulations on how companies can and can't use this data. In fact, it was just reported back in September that Jeff Bezos says that Amazon is writing its own facial recognition laws in the tech giant's hope that federal lawmakers will adopt much of its draft legislation on facial recognition regulations. In other words, it's a total joke. Bear in mind that our society still hasn't even solved basic issues like poverty, the ever-widening wealth gap and inequality, homelessness, deficient healthcare, unemployment, government corruption, I don't know, the list goes on and on and on. Nothing about these systems appears to be aimed at doing anything about these major societal issues we face either. I mean, it's pretty clear that the ultimate goal here is not liberation through technology, the way they were promising it back in the 50s and 60s, but more of an Orwellian digital panopticon level control in the name of safety and convenience. These high-tech tracking and tracing systems allow whoever's in charge to define what desirable and undesirable behavior is, and then attempt to modify people, whether or not that's the Chinese government or major Silicon Valley firms. We've already seen this happening with the censorship of controversial opinions everywhere from social media outlets to the takedown of books and films from tech giant Amazon. I mean, ultimately, this is about the modification of a person's thoughts and beliefs, an engineering of their behavior, and thus control over people's reality. The gamification of society isn't news or even new. We've been prodded in this direction my entire life anyway, decades now, in the form of video games, financial credit scores, frequent flyer mile programs, shopper points, loyalty reward systems. But the question remains, what happens when the game becomes so enmeshed in real life that no one is allowed to stop playing? Where everything a person does in modern society, every interaction, both online and off, is tracked, traced, and then rewarded or punished. And who gets to make up the rules of the game that we should all be forced to play by?
It sounds really cool for a theme park ride. You're all like, yeah, wow, cool, man, I want my turn. But after you go around the block once or twice, you think, I've seen this movie. It's 2001.
I'm sorry, Dave.
Logan's Run, The Wizard of Oz, it's Rollerball, it's The Hunger Games, Gattaca 1984, Brave New World, Divergent, Soylent Green, etc. I've seen that movie, I've actually seen all those movies. And you realize one fatal flaw. What happens if they don't like what I say? And what happens if I don't like or believe in what they do anymore? What about my rights, man? There's no guarantee of freedom or absolute respect of rights. And you're just another, basically, head of cattle in the global management system. And everything shifts according to what is already acceptable and what certain people wish to make acceptable. And it's always between those lines. The theme park ride would become torture rather than entertainment if you were never allowed off of it.
Just because we have technology doesn't mean a system like this will prevail, or that the whole thing isn't setting itself up for its own demise. The only way a system like this can work is if the majority continues to go along with what has been put in place by a tiny elite minority. History has repeatedly shown there's no greater tool for liberation than a system of total oppression. And just because it comes now packaged with the slick veneer of machine intelligence and high-definition video, doesn't really change that.
First off, what a turnout! How wild is this, huh? All I did was eliminate the most powerful man in the universe. Are there any questions? Go on. Yes, you in the back.
I'm sure we'd all like to know what you plan to do with us and this city.
Good, I'm glad you asked that. Imagine the most horrible, terrifying, evil thing you can possibly think of, and multiply it by 6! In the meantime, I want you to carry on with the dreary, normal things you normal people do. Let's just have fun with this, come on. And I will get back to you. Now slam the door really hard. they can still see you. Now, your elbow's still in. Oh, good.